Okay, so a really exciting call today. We're going to touch on the benefits of red light therapy. We're going to talk about photobiomodulation, all kinds of new terms. And I'm here with Valerie Krossin from Aspen Laser, who is the clinical director of the Theralight and some of the new technology that's coming out that's the red light technology. And Valerie, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So you're really an expert. We've talked a little bit before the call, and we've talked earlier in the week on red light therapy, benefits of red light therapy, infrared or far infrared, whatever the red light wavelengths are, is really becoming popular. Like there is a lot of information, a lot of products hitting the market. I know that with Aspen Laser, the Theralight product is really one of the pinnacle uh, light technologies that's out there. So let's start off the call with just a little basic education. And if you could help us out, what is red light therapy?
Ah, if I may, let me back up a little bit and give you a little bit of
Okay.
history on me so that I
Yes, I'm
can
so sorry.
so the clients that are watching this or the viewers can I decide if I'm quality or qualified to give them this information or not.
Yes,
So
I
my
apologize.
background is actually I spent 20 years as a nurse. Fabulous industry, but when average lifespan for nurses is about 10 years, but I made it almost actually 23 total. But at the end, when I decided I didn't want to be a nurse when I grew up anymore, I was looking for something new, and I found myself by accident in the red light therapy industry. I have a really old neck injury that I had three pretty significant whiplashes as a younger person, no seatbelts, and then raised with horses. That put me in a crisis in 2008, and I had a flare up in my neck that pinched some nerves that made me unable to move my right arm for 5 weeks, and I was in the worst pain in my adult life. And so I tried everything first before light because the person that introduced me to light said it was going to cure everything, and I arrogantly dismissed him because I was a nurse of 20 years and I hadn't heard of it. How dare he tell me that? Until I was so desperate, I had nothing else to try. And I tried it. And in 3 sessions, it took me out of crisis. And I went, wait, what? And so I became a bit of a nerd and tried to figure out what this new technology was. And there wasn't much research back then. It was very difficult to find literature to support it, which, of course, coming from the world of nursing, that's how you validate everything, right?
Mhm.
So I just knew that it worked though. So I went in and I talked to the owner of the company that had sold this device to a local practitioner who I went to and ended up collaborating. It didn't last very long because I was very quickly able to discern it wasn't the best on the market. And the journey has taken me through the next almost 16 years now to where am today. And I've learned massive amounts of information that I'd like to share little bits of with you today so that the layperson who's out there looking for this technology can become an educated consumer, because truthfully, it's a very much a buyer beware industry. It is exploding right now in when people are out looking for solutions for aches and pains and creaky joints and cognitive health and recovery in sports so they can perform better. There's just a wide variety. Aesthetics, it's great for the skin. There's a wide variety of people looking. Actually, I think I heard recently, and I have not validated this, but I heard that red light therapy and pain is actually one of the top search phrases on Google right now, literally
Wow.
worldwide. When it comes to pain, they're looking for red light therapy. And so, and the biohackers of the world have gotten a hold of this and have discovered it, and it's starting to go viral, which I said it was going to happen 15 years ago because I was so excited when I learned about this technology that because of the way it works, it's non-invasive. It has literally no negative side effects when it's dosed properly, and it can treat any part of the body if we can reach it with the correct parameters. And so I thought that that was the true Hippocratic oath, that it would go everywhere very quickly. And here we are almost 15 years or almost 16 years later, and we're finally at the point where it's starting to become a household name, if you will. And it's very, very exciting because it was a long journey.
Yeah,
So
that is. In 16 years, you've really been at the forefront of the development of the technology. And like you said, researching it and really being able to see, a wide spectrum of products and definitely development over that time frame.
Well, I've certainly seen the evolution for sure. So I worked with multiple companies along the way, learning more each time. But one of the most, gosh, the differentiator in my learning curve was when we were able to finally find solid research on how it worked. And then the next massive aha moment was when they determined how to calculate the physics or calculate the math of dosing, and that's affected by physics. And once that was understood, it changed the game because it went from a up and down, if you will, efficacy technology or intervention to now it's math and it's literally calculating dose, just like we do in the pharmaceutical industry. Dose matters. Not enough doesn't do the right things. Perfect amount is what you're looking for. Too much actually can be detrimental. And in light, it's not detrimental. It can hurt you, excuse me. It's that it won't work as well. So there's no such thing as bad red light therapy, and unless it's extremely done incorrectly. There's just better red light therapy, and dialing it in is what people want because that's where best outcomes come from.
Got it. So with that being said, let's get down to some terms and terminology. What is red light? What is red light therapy? Like technically, what does that really actually mean from a clinical
So the
perspective?
official phrase or word is photobiomodulation, photo meaning light, bio meaning living, and modulation change within. So that term was adopted, I think it was in 2015, because when you go to PubMed, the National Institutes of Health's largest research database in the world, and try to Google red light therapy or laser therapy or low level, there was literally over 80 terms to describe this technology. So they finally said, that's enough. Most of them were marketing companies trying to differentiate. And so they said, that's enough, let's name it. So now it sounds like PBM therapy, sounds like a sandwich. So let's name it, index it, and now you can go out and search. And there are in excess of 40,000 laboratory studies and randomly controlled trials on PubMed on the technology of photobiomodulation, mechanism of action, and everything from brain to skin to aches and pains and creaky joints to honestly sperm motility, and everything in between has been studied because it works exactly the same in every single cell type. So it can be studied for every condition. So it's literally small body of evidence in so many different topics because light is so diverse and can affect, if we can reach it with the correct parameters, things get better. And that's the bottom line. So that's where the confusion has come in the history. So that's one of the reasons that I love chatting about this technology, because it is it's on, as a consumer, you don't have, there's no way for you to be able to understand what questions to ask because there's no way for you to know what parameters really matter. And so if I can take just a moment and kind of tangent off into that direction, this is the things that if you're a consumer looking for red light therapy, well, let me back up. What does red light therapy do? So the name is photobiomodulation. What it is the application of very specific parameters of light: color, intensity, quantity, how often you use it, and where you point it, okay? So those are the parameters that are very specific. So when those things are done correctly and applied to cells that are sick, degenerating, need to recover from extraneous exercise or from maybe a surgery or an injury, so sick, degenerating, or at risk of dying, when you apply light to those cells, it legitimately removes the roadblocks that are causing that cell to be less able to heal itself than it's programmed to do. So our body is innately able to, and constantly is in this state of biofeedback where it's trying to manage and create a state of homeostasis, which is optimal environment for health. But the world we live in is incredibly convenient space, which is not very good for us health-wise. But in the case where, maybe you've made some bad choices and you've lost your quality of health, or maybe you're an athlete and you want to perform better, or maybe you're just well and healthy and you want to stay well and healthy and burn out like a light bulb. Those are the things that light can address, all of them, which makes it seem too good to be true. But it's really not, because the where light works is important. If those parameters are properly dosed, light, let's just set that aside and say we'll accept that as being the case. But when properly dosed light is applied to cells that are injured or sick, it does one thing, and it does it extremely well. And it displaces a molecule that has binding up inappropriately the place that the cell attaches oxygen normally. So when that oxygen can't attach because it's already bound up by a free radical, then the cell is producing less energy because it's in that place it's supposed to bind is in the energy production cycle. And every cell has anywhere, depends on the literature you read, I've heard anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of receptor sites per cell, depending on the workload of that cell. So if that cell has been stressed and those free radicals have spiked up in excess and they're binding up that oxygen receptor site, the cells aren't breathing like they're supposed to. Well, when that happens, it can't make as much energy as it's supposed to. Why that's incredibly important is because we make our body weight in energy every single day and we use 100% of it. We don't get to store energy. And this very complex chain called the electron transport chain is where energy is made. And if oxygen's not in place, it makes 2 molecules. But when oxygen is in place, it makes 32 molecules. So it's a 16-fold increase in energy production, just simply because oxygen is where it belongs. So how light works and why it's so profound is it displaces that inappropriately bound molecule. All it does is get absorbed by that enzyme, kicks out that free radical. The cool thing is the blood vessels actually absorb that free radical and creates a vasodilation effect. So it increases circulation and brings more nutrients and removes more waste. So it's a positive side effect from a very negative molecule. So light is the first step in the process, getting rid of the roadblocks, which restores the building blocks. So when those roadblocks are in place, the cell is stressed and not making energy. It's also very inflamed. So we've broken the cascade that causes inflammation. And now the cells have the ability to start to go back to that balance, that homeostasis again. When that state is restored, it knows how to heal itself. The downstream cascade is then very cell specific. So it doesn't matter if it's brain tissue or skin or bones or joints or tendons, it doesn't matter. The question is, can we reach it? And can we reach it with the correct colors and the correct parameters? And those parameters are strength, intensity, and quantity, and how often we do it, which is all math. So that part's now pretty easy. Back in the day, it wasn't because we didn't understand it, but now it's pretty easy. So the question is what's the best delivery tool to get the outcomes that you as an individual are looking for? And so light is delivered in 2 different ways. There's a spot therapy application, which is called laser, usually. There are LEDs that can treat spots, but they're not a great intervention because there's not enough light that can come out of an LED compared to a laser. So lasers are typically your spot devices. Full body beds and panels are typically designed for more tissue coverage, right? So, and I can go, I'd like to split off here for just a little bit if I can continue to move on. So in the aches and pains and creaky joints, pain conditions and cognitive health, directly applying light to a localized area is much faster and much more profound in the outcomes because lasers have way more quantity of photons being delivered from a spot size. And so we can get about twice as deep with a laser than we can with LEDs. So I have worked with a lot of different types of practitioners and organizations, and light is profound when it comes to cognitive health. But it has to be delivered with a laser to get enough quantity through the skull and into the tissue below to be actually effective and sustainable. LEDs will get light there, but not enough to be sustainable. They just don't put out as much light, right? So then on the wellness, or same thing with aches and pains, pointed on a shoulder, a hip, a knee, whatever it is that hurts, it's literally with a quality device, takes about 10 minutes and that pain is over 50% improved, and most of the time 75 to 80% improved, and a lot of the time 100%. But it doesn't last very long the first time. It takes consistent therapy every other day for a couple of weeks to get it to go through that healing curve. So you start in a chronic stuck state, light moves it into an acute phase of healing, and over that next 2 weeks, it starts to basically support that curve. So until we get to the other side where that cell's had time to heal. But if we get, 2-3 days in and stop using it, that's where your progress stops too. It goes back into a stuck state. It's got to go through that healing curve. So it helps to re-energize, literally re-energize those cells so they can start to heal again. When you're talking about wellness and sports recovery and prevention, full body stuff. Whether it's disease or you want to stay healthy or you're an athlete and you want to perform better, that's where the best delivery system is a full body. There's a lot of people jumping onto these panels. The panels are, the challenge with the panels is this is where the first physics principles come in. Our skin is designed to protect us from the sunlight, right? So we have this skin that reflects light away when it bounces against the skin. So if you use a panel, when that light hits the skin, there's nothing to capture it and keep it from going into the atmosphere. So it bounces and 90% of it reflects away into the atmosphere and you've lost 90% of your medicine. So even if it's a great panel, you're losing the medicine. So the reason for these beds is they're like a tube. You lay in a full 360-degree circle and that light just keeps bouncing against you and bouncing back to the bed and ricocheting around, and you're literally saturated in massive quantities of light for 12 to 20 minutes. And it's massive quantities because remember, again, every single cell has up to 600,000 receptor sites. So we need lots and lots of light. So that's how the delivery systems make a difference. The other things that make a difference are the colors and the intensities and all of those kinds of things. And I'm happy to go through those with you if you'd like to drill down a bit deeper.
Yeah, I definitely do. Real quick, can you just slowly one more time break down the photo bio and modulation, what that is? Because you did say it, and I'm like, I know for me, it's something I'm going to need to have to repeat over and over. I
Sure.
like the fact they've consolidated the technology under one general term so that you kind of know. But can you break that down again of what that is?
Sure. So it's called photobiomodulation, photo meaning light,
Photobiomodulation.
bio meaning living, and modulation meaning change within. So when the light is absorbed by that cell, specifically the cytochrome C oxidase enzyme in the energy production cycle, when the light is absorbed, it displaces that free radical that's inappropriately binding there and keeping the oxygen from attaching. And when that happens, and it displaces it, the blood vessels absorb them and put them to work in a positive way, creating vasodilation and bringing blood flow. So that process then takes the trigger away that has caused the inflammatory cascade. So we're also breaking the inflammation chain. So you get rid of the free radicals, you increase circulation, you get rid of inflammation, and the cell starts to heal because it's naturally programmed to do so. And we can point it at any part of the body and expect it to get better if we can reach it with the right dosing principles.
I love that. So, what is actually happening to the free radicals? Are they getting pushed into the bloodstream and then excreted out of the body, or
No, what's fascinating is when that light it hits that enzyme, and they just think of it like it literally ricochets them off, it bounces them out. The local blood vessels absorb that molecule. It's called mitochondrial nitric oxide. There are nitric oxide supplements on the market deliberately designed to vasodilate. So nitric oxide is a natural vasodilator. So when the light shines on those inappropriately binding molecules and kicks them away, now oxygen attaches, but those free-floating molecules now get absorbed by the local blood vessels and go to work in a positive way. They vasodilate. That cells, the lining of the blood vessel uses those negative molecules up. They're gone now, but they've been used right instead of wrong. Make sense? So it goes from being a
does? And
negative to a positive.
yeah, and what's so amazing is that in our environment, the number one cause of all health issues, and this is very well documented, number one cause of cardiovascular disease is inflammation. And
Inflammation.
everybody's carrying these free radicals, and free radicals, if I know this correctly, are unstable cells. They're missing an electron. They're
Right.
bouncing all over the place. They're causing havoc. And your body starts off a chain reaction because a free radical gets the body to send another cell to basically take out that. And what happens is that you basically keep getting these cells that are missing electrons, and you get this buildup of inflammation, and that is the leading cause. And this technology, this is a very different way of dealing with free radicals. Like, there's a lot of ways you can deal with free radicals. They'll say, eat berries and fruit and they've got electrons, but
or supplements.
literally you're eating pounds and pounds. I mean, it's not practical, but
Well,
it
and
but it
it's
is.
different from you than it is for me. So your nutritional needs are very different than mine. So it becomes a very customized approach. And then as you change, you have to go back and get it reevaluated and recustomize the supplementation to truly do a great job. That takes a lot of expertise and a lot of time and honestly a lot of money. But what light doesn't need the digestive tract to work, it goes directly to the cells, which is where the nutrients as well go after digestion. So again, is your product a quality product? Is it bioavailable? There are so many potentials for derailing on the supplement route. And then the other thing is sleep. Most of us don't sleep well enough to help our body heal properly. Light actually encourages natural melatonin production, so we sleep better as a result. So it's removing the roadblocks again of bad. It's honestly a reflection of the world we live in. It's so convenience-based, which is fabulous. I don't want to give up my conveniences, but I also don't want to suffer my health for them, which is why we don't go out and eat the things we love to eat, et cetera. Now, I'm not saying that light gives you an excuse to do bad things, but it helps you to combat the world that we live in, which is terribly convenience-based and not very good for us.
Yeah, that really brings up a good point. So light itself is frequency, correct? I mean, the light and every color of light is throwing off a different frequency. And so you've kind of touched on it. You didn't really get too far into it yet, but the frequency or the red light is probably what we know the best. Do you want to get into
Yes.
like the frequency of
Yeah.
light and how far it
It's
penetrates and
interesting
just,
that you, yeah, it's interesting that you use the word frequency, number one, and that we actually don't use frequency in light because it actually means three things. So frequency is color, which is actually the correct terminology is wavelength. It can be how often you use it. So the correct terminology is interval, and it could be the pulse rate, which is a hertz setting. So how the light, so all light oscillates, right? So the rate at which it oscillates is measured in hertz, and that can be nicknamed frequency as well. So we opt out of frequency and use the three terms separately instead. So let me kind of break down the four things that make light good, better, or not as good, because there's no bad light, but there are things that dial it in and make it the best. And these are really important things, and again, are affected by physics. So the first thing is the color. That's wavelength. The color is the medicine of light. And the range of acceptable wavelength, and wavelengths are measured in a word called nanometers. So 1/1000th of a millimeter is a nanometer. I think I won't get into that. So you have the range of 600 nanometers to 1100 nanometers. So basically your pretty red colors move into the near infrared, which means you can barely see it, to the infrared wavelength, you can't see it, okay? So red is the most impactful color from a perspective of getting rid of those free radicals. The problem is it has multiple absorption sites. So it can be absorbing hemoglobin and copper and melanin in your skin and this cytochrome C oxidase enzyme. The point there is it gets used up very quickly along the way. So the penetration of red is the shallowest color. It goes through the skin and into the underlying tissue, but not very far. LEDs go half as deep as lasers do. So lasers go about 6 centimeters deep, the deepest penetrating colors. Red only goes about 2 centimeters deep, so the width of one finger. And LEDs go half that depth, okay? So lasers and LEDs, we talked about the delivery systems. So the next, and color penetration of light is not correlative to the number that they assign it. So 600 is the most shallow. Then it goes into the 700 range, which we don't use at all because it doesn't really do anything in photobiomodulation, which, by the way, I'm going to come back to that comment. Don't let me forget that. Then you go into the 800 range. Well, the 800 range is actually the deepest penetrating parameters of light known to science recently about, well, probably maybe a little bit over a year ago, maybe a couple, they were able to take the 1064 nanometer and create a diode that could deliver it in therapy devices. And now it's actually the deepest penetrating color of all. So we have the 600 ranges. We don't use the sevens. The 800 is the deepest penetrating historically. Then we start moving into the 900s. And as it goes through the 900, low 900s to high 900s, it actually gets more and more shallow because it gets more and more water absorption. And we're such high quantity of water as a human being, upwards to 67, 70%, that we lose that light again to a very prevalent medium. So shallow, deep, back shallow again, and then we hit 1064, and for some reason it's the deepest penetrating single color. That's, well, and when I say single color, when you say a nanometer of 1064, in lasers it's an exact number. In LEDs it diverges 20 nanometers on either side. So in LEDs we're talking 1044 to 1084. So that's again where it kind of gets the separation between lasers and LEDs. Lasers are collimated beams, very focused beams. They all run, wavelengths all run in exact unison, where LEDs are scattered and they don't run in unison, therefore they diverge a bit more. Does that make sense? So color is your medicine. The next most,
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
The next most,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. This time I
that's
really
good.
mean it. You
Hold
go.
your thought though, so let's not forget to do it.
Yeah, I will.
The next most important parameter in light and how it works at tissue level is the intensity of the light. So it used to be this word power. People say I have more power than they do. Well, power actually can be split into two different topics as well. Intensity first and quantity second. So if we just throw a bunch of power at something and the intensity is high, it actually can create inhibition, because light does one of three things when it's absorbed. It stimulates repair, it inhibits, which means downregulates cells, but it doesn't do any harm, or it creates a thermal effect, which can be harmful. So based on the intensity or the irradiance of the light source. So low intensity stimulates, moderate intensity inhibits, and high intensity, think of a light being focused into a smaller and smaller spot. The more small the spot is, the higher the intensity, because all that energy is being directed into a very small area. So that high intensity can actually become thermal. We do intentionally do that for LASIK surgery when they're, fixing the eyes. They focus that light beam and they use colors that are highly water absorbed, so those molecules vibrate and it creates an ability to cut. So all your LASIK and aesthetics lasers and light devices are in those higher numbers than the 900s. They go 1100 and way out into the infrareds, okay? And which brings me to infrared saunas. We have to tackle that conversation as well. Infrared saunas are primarily water absorption, so it's not photobiomodulation. It's deep, or a lot of water absorption, a lot of water molecule vibration. So it's a deep heating, which there's like a very large school of thought that it helps to detoxify cells because it warms them up and helps to support the membrane of the cell to let things come and go better. So infrared saunas and photobiomodulation are very different technologies, but they're all using light. It's no different than X-ray is not, it's also on the spectrum, but it's a very different use based on the wavelength, right? So that also brings me to a thought that X-rays are what they call ionizing wavelengths. They hurt cells, they can damage it, they can cause cancer if too much exposure. But red and near infrared are what they call non-ionizing, which means there's no harm that can come to you. It does just the opposite. It actually helps to heal things, right? So lasers in that wavelength. The other thought I wanted to bring on the color topic is greens, yellows, and blues. Why are they not used in photobiomodulation? Because they don't penetrate past the top layer of skin. There is such a shallow color as to be ineffective in this industry because they don't get into the body. There's no way we can get them there. So they're great for aesthetics, but they're not great for health and wellness, right? Well, that's why we use very specific colors. We stay in this very tiny little band of red and near infrared. So the color is the medicine. The intensity determines how the tissue responds, but that's affected by two more physics principles, which makes it confusing again. So one is called reflection. We touched on it briefly when we talked about LEDs. If light bounces against the skin, it goes into the atmosphere unless it's captured by a tube. That's why the delivery system in beds is far superior to panels. But in lasers, we actually apply it directly to the skin, the handpiece, and don't let that light bounce away. It's forcing it into the tissue because there's direct contact. Well, we can't direct contact in a bed because there's too many human bodies that are different sizes, right? And therefore, again, that's why the tube. Okay, so here's the other thing that makes the dosing principles of light in the past, historically, very difficult. And now that we understand the math, it's just math. And this is the most important part. The intensity changes as it gets further away from the diode that's emitting it, okay? So let's talk about the laser delivery first. You've got one spot size, maybe it's about 6 centimeters across, which is about 3 inches. And you lay it directly against the skin because it's a single diode. That light scatters like a flashlight as it's penetrating into the tissue. Physics, it scatters, okay? Bounces all the way around until it finds a place to be absorbed, and then it goes to work helping the cells heal. So because that beam goes like this, think about it, your area that it's moving into gets wider and wider as it goes deeper. So that means that light is getting diluted and weaker. So remember, stimulation, inhibition, and thermal. If we start at a stronger light source at the surface of the skin, by the time it's 6 centimeters into the body, it's actually, by the time it's about 1 to 1.5 centimeters, it's cold and it's healing things. But we want to be in a very specific range when we reach the target we're trying to reach. So I'll put that into a visual. If you have shoulder pain, I'm an average adult. I'm 5'9", upper middle-aged female. Darn it. All right. But what if I have a bodybuilder sitting in front of me? Or what if I have grandma who's 98 years old and has no muscle mass left? It's the same anatomical location, but a very different depth of penetration. For a big gentleman, that could be, 3 to 6 centimeters just in the shoulder. For me, I've got a decent muscle mass, so I'm probably 2 to 4 centimeters, where grandma, she's barely 2, right? Because she doesn't have any muscle mass left. So we can't go based on anatomical location. We have to go based on how deep that target is. And again, if my light is stronger at the surface and gets weaker as it's going in, I need to know how deep my target is to set the right dose. And that is a spreadsheet. So we make it simple by saying, if it's this deep, use this setting, period. That's all you have to think about. The only thing you have to look at is how deep is the setting. In the bed, because this is where the manufacturer separates itself from the ones that don't understand the math. If your diodes are not super, super close together, think about that. If your diodes are basically touching each other and you've got all these little flashlight beams that come off the diode and they all overlap with each other, it creates a very uniform light source that doesn't get weaker because all these beams are crisscrossing. But if your diodes are far apart, your flashlight beams are barely touching, let alone crisscrossing. So you have very weak areas and then no light and then another weak area. So it creates a very much lower dose than when the diodes are super close together. So back to the Theralight, that's why there's 45,000 LEDs in that device, so that you have massive quantity of photons, because we have trillions of cells with very overlapping light sources. So it's uniform, so we don't get weaker as it's going into the body. It needs to be those things to make a quality product. And see how it comes back full circle to how hard it would be for a layperson to understand how to even ask the right questions. They just know that it works. Isn't it all the same? It's just light, right? It's not.
It's really not. And you know what? This is really good for people to be able to drill down. And, we actually haven't introduced Theralight, but that is, the premier technology that you represent, which is why we're on the phone, because we're always looking for the best technology that's out there. But the Theralight system is basically it's a photobiomodulation. I mean, I almost,
Full
if you
body
can,
tanning bed is what it is, but it's red and near
yeah,
infrared wavelengths. Good stuff, not bad stuff.
really good stuff and super top of the line. And now we can really get a better understanding of what it is that Theralight is doing, Theralight 360, that differentiates it from other technologies that are out there. And I'm going to put a photo of it up here while we're shooting, not right this second, but as this video goes, you'll see it. But I almost would think of it as like a tanning bed, but it's a tanning bed that's putting out
The chassis of a tanning bed, it's the
a
frame.
chassis of a tanning bed.
But
Exactly. Thank
instead
you.
of having, so it's a great example, because tanning beds have ultraviolet wavelengths, which are ionizing wavelengths, which overexposure can cause skin cancer. But the skin is responding to it by, number one, reflecting it away, which is why you get so much more light in a tanning bed than you do standing out in the sun. You're keeping it in that tube, right? but it's interacting with the melanin, which is a primary absorption site, and it's allowing you to get tan, right? But it doesn't get into the body. It's the wrong colors. So again, red and near infrared penetrate, whereas ultraviolet does not, and it's good for you versus ultraviolet is not, right? So the parameters matter. I always tell people it's just like this. If you have a headache, you want to take a medication that is properly dosed to get your headache gone. So you're not going to take 30 baby aspirin. You're going to take an extra strength Excedrin or a narcotic, depending on the degree of severity. The dose has to be correct. Well, then how often do I take it? Well, as often as you need it to keep the headache under control. Hopefully it's just one time. But if you have a condition where you have to take it consistently to manage your pain, that's why it's in. So in pharmaceuticals, it's the medicine, the quantity, and then how often you take it. And then the delivery system, right? Do I do it IV, or do I do it topically, or do I do it orally? So same thing in light. Light is a medicine. It has to be the correct amount, the correct colors, the delivery system has to be correct, and the techniques that you deliver it has to be correct. How often you do it has to be correct. And that's why if you're not talking to an expert that can answer all of these questions for you, you're probably in the wrong spot.
Yeah. And guess what? If anybody's watching this and they have questions, email me. I'll get them to Valerie. We'll put them on for our next call. We'll do questions and
Yeah,
answers
we can do a series of FAQs, one question at a time,
because
because I know
this
people,
this
it's
will be an
overwhelming for
ongoing.
everybody. I guarantee it's overwhelming. It's just a lot.
It is a
The
lot,
goal
but
is
you
to
know what?
make
That's
people
why.
understand. That's why this is
Yeah.
such a difficult technology. You better find a good partner.
Yeah, which I'm super happy that we've partnered up with you. Now, but I just want to go back to one thing and just bring it up real quick, and then I'm going to move on. I want to ask you about how infrared stimulates mitochondria, and I want to also talk about far infrared and some or the far infrared and what's near infrared. But I just have to get back to this thing with these free radicals, right? And you're talking about the shoulder and stiffness and soreness and arthritic type conditions, which are when you've got a lot of built up free radicals, that is a very common thing. But when you're using Theralight 360 and you're getting your full body that's basically removing free radicals or transforming them back into the bloodstream, you are really mitigating a lot of other additional health issues from coming your way because free radicals, it might be stiffness in the shoulder, but I've done
Let
a
me,
lot of research on that. And I tell you, free radicals are the common, like the
they are
leading cause of
considered the underlying cause of every disease
every
known to
disease.
science. So let me back
Yes,
up and explain that just a little bit more, because you're right. That needs to be really clear. Free radicals, specifically mitochondrial nitric oxide, gets in the way, causes stress to the cell, which triggers the production of a very volatile free radical called reactive oxygen species. It's nicknamed commonly oxidative stress, and we all think of it as inflammation. Inflammation left unchecked causes degradation to the cell membrane and the cell itself. And eventually, if we don't get it under control with rest and free radicals, antioxidants from our diet, or another source, light is a massive antioxidant. So if we don't get those free radicals under control, they cause every disease we know of. So let's
everyone.
talk about diabetes, for example. Sugar is a perfect trigger, and we do it all day, every day for years and years, and it eventually slowly degrades those cells and causes that disease. But you can reverse diabetes by cleaning up your diet and getting things like this in your life that helps to get rid of those free radicals. Make sense? A little bit of free radicals is actually really good for us. It triggers the responses of the human body to come and fix that problem. But a lot of free radicals gets overwhelming, and the teeter-totter tips into a direction it can't manage anymore. As I was a nurse, I used to work in a clinic setting and in the hospital settings. And I would get people that would come in and say, I was so healthy until I was, and usually that age they named was 45 or 50. And then I just started to fall apart. And I would say gently, no, you weren't. It was just you have this amazing thing called the human anatomy that was able to defend itself against the things you were doing to it. Bad diet, no exercise, smoking like a freight train. The things that you chose to do, and you didn't maybe even know what you were doing to yourself, caused you over time slow, insidious degradation, eventually the disease that you wish you didn't have. So it doesn't mean you can't get better, it means that you have to understand it and apply the things what can help you get better, or live like you've lived forever and you're going to keep getting worse. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And it's education.
Yeah. So, that's a huge thing because you're addressing free radicals, you're getting them out of the body, you're really reducing a statistic too, by the way, 3 out of 5 deaths on the planet are caused from some type of inflammation based. It's
I,
it's probably
I would,
higher, but that's
I
the
think it's higher than
minimum.
that. And let me give you another thing, a statistic that gives you kind of puts this into perspective, if you will. If you sit next to somebody that's smoking a cigarette and you're breathing secondhand smoke, or you're smoking that cigarette yourself, one cigarette creates quadrillions of free radicals to be produced in your body. And when a free radical is produced, you're right, it's an imbalanced, you've lost an electron off the atom. It goes out and scavenges that lost electron from another healthy cell.
Yeah,
And it
and it
just
destroys the healthy cell.
chain
And
reaction.
yes,
It's the healthy cell signal.
yes,
And that's why disease happens, because healthy cells get attacked by unhealthy cells. So
yeah.
light neutralizes those free radicals in massive quantities and allows your cells to go back and start to be healthy again, because it takes those roadblocks away and levels that teeter-totter back out. Now your cells know what to do with the extra oxygen and the extra blood that's coming in and the extra nutrients. Now we go to work healing things because the roadblocks are gone and the building blocks are back in place.
I love that. And I mean, that in itself is a huge, huge,
It's
I
one of the
mean,
most
social.
profound interventions that I honestly know exists, because it doesn't matter what your digestive health is. It doesn't matter what your health condition as a whole is. It literally goes to work with whatever you have, and you are healthier when you got out than when you got in every single time, every time.
Yeah.
But you can't do
So
it
I'm just going
once
to
and
hit on,
expect
I'm
it to
sorry,
be
go ahead.
better. You got to do it consistently, just like you do the gym,
Yeah,
just like you eat well.
exactly.
It's a
Yeah,
lifestyle choice.
it
Yeah,
is.
more time, more frequency to get you back healthy again. But once you're healthy, then it takes a couple times a week to maintain and just defend against this wonderfully convenient world that we live in.
Hmm. Now, some other byproducts of red light uh, technology, and you tell me, and you can go on to this. I'd like to ask you a couple questions about these particular things. Then I'd like to finish off and talk a little bit about the Theralight 360 and the home version and the new one, the Plus, which is an amazing piece of technology. But uh, infrared or red light therapy stimulates mitochondria. Mitochondria are sort of the energy cells. So I've heard it doubles the production of mitochondria. It gives you extra energy. I've heard also it's really good for the skin. I've seen people that have said that the far infrared has really done a lot for their skin. And I have heard, and you could address this, that it also has assisted perhaps in weight loss.
Okay, great questions. So first thing is, let's go back to the mitochondria question. It doesn't create more mitochondria. It makes those mitochondria more efficient. So if you don't have oxygen, you make 2 molecules every pass through that chain. If you have oxygen, you make 32. So it takes it 16-fold more efficient in its job. Okay. So the number of mitochondria in a cell is based on the workload of that cell. So the brain and the heart have the highest mitochondria of all the body, as you can imagine. Those are very hardworking brain, nerve cells, things. So nervous tissue is the number one. Cardiac is the number two, I believe, but your liver and your kidneys are super high energy consumption organs too. So those have a lot as well. Fat has the least amount because it just kind of lays there and gets in the way, right? So
Yeah.
based on the workload of the cell. So what are the things we see when we use light consistently, I think is the question you're asking. Improve sleep, better skin, less anxiety, less ADD. The symptom that, no, I got to qualify this. The downstream cascade is lack of inflammation or reduced inflammation and cellular healing. So cells go back to normal function. Doesn't make cells do more or less than they're supposed to. It takes them back to a natural state. So the benefits then are a downstream cascade of that. So the sleep comes because we get more melatonin production. And that happens almost immediately, by the way. The skin comes because it restores aging to a natural rate. So we're accelerating the aging process with this inflammation. We are programmed to live 120 years biologically. The average lifespan is 75 to 80. We're losing a third of our life to free radical damage and inflammation. So it gets rid of this inflammation, increases circulation. And the benefits are skin, health, your vision gets better, you sleep better at night, which brings down stress. Light has actually been shown to to regulate the parasympathetic response, which is a down regulation of that fight or flight. So with this state of stress that we're in all the time, because we're not exercising like we're supposed to, and instead of when something stresses us, we run away, we sit there and we take it and we get tense in our shoulders, right? So it helps to relax the body, which is incredibly helpful. They've proven since the 50s that stress kills us, right? It's a contributor to death. So the downstream cascade is literally, there's 150 things that happen, but ultimately result in healthier tissue, and it doesn't matter what kind. So if you say to me, will it help my X, whatever that X is, my answer is yes, it probably will, because it doesn't matter what you call it. The cells respond identically to this application of light, whether it's brain cells or heart cells or everything in between. So that's the
What? The more,
light.
yeah. The
Oh,
more we get into this, Valerie, okay, go, girl,
let
go.
me go one more. It's so sports. This
All
has
right.
become a really big industry. So there's basically three categories of people that like the light. And we seem to be on the full body bed. So I'm going to go there. People that are well and healthy and want to burn out like a light bulb, age at a natural rate and have a quality end of life and burn out like a light bulb. That's me. That's where I want to live. People that have lost their wellness and want to regain it. So any sort of disease process will likely get better if you use light beds consistently, properly dosed. And then athletics, that's the third one. They've actually shown that light is cell protective, and when you have taken muscle to failure, it takes less than 12 hours to fully recover if you're using properly dosed light versus 72 hours, just normal. We exercise, we're sore for a couple of days, and then it's better and we can train again. But you can literally train in approximately 12 hours if you're using a red light full body consistently. There was a systematic review of the literature that was just published probably about 6 months ago now that said light may be banned from international sports as an unfair advantage. Well, I chuckled when I read it, because how do you test for light? You don't.
Yeah.
It's no different than telling me I can't eat vegetables. It's a
Right.
statement, because light is natural. But why can't we go into the sunlight and get what we need? It's a multitude of colors. We've picked a very narrow spectrum, and we have massive quantities to deal with the free radical damage that the world has created. So did I answer that right?
You did. And like all the answers and all the knowledge has just been like,
Well, lots of years of
but
studying
I
this. I'm
love
a
it
bit of
though.
a
I
nerd.
love it because, this is the kind of video, that's why I would like to do videos, because really they're based on education and knowledge. And certainly there's products and stuff that get attached to that, but you really need a foundational knowledge base to work from to understand what is the technology, why is it beneficial, why should
Right.
I implement it, how do I implement it,
And how do I pick
like,
a good device? That's the thing too,
well,
is
that's it. That's just it,
they're
because
all over the spectrum, and most of them don't
it's
have the clue of the
everywhere.
things we just talked about. And they're manufacturers.
No. Yeah.
So,
So let's talk about the Theralight 360. Let's talk about the home unit, and let's talk about the plus. And
okay,
then we'll finish up this call and schedule you to do another one tomorrow. I'm just
perfect.
teasing, but
So
next week or the week after.
yeah, we'll target the spot therapy devices maybe at that point too, or just go into individual questions. But so I have partnered with Theralight because I understand the science. I'm an independent contractor, and I've partnered with them in 2018 because I truly believe they're the best built product on the market to deliver the parameters we've just been discussing. So we have three models. One's called the Theralight Fit. It's 6 foot long and not quite 3 feet wide. It's got a curved bottom and a curved top. And so it's like a clamshell. It just comes down over top you like that. It doesn't fit everybody. So if you're over 6 foot long and big broad shoulders, you're going to feel pretty squeezed in it. Can you be in it? Have a little bit open? Yes. It's got 27,000 LEDs because that's what fits in that size. Okay. Now compare that to the 360. Same exact colors, LEDs, parameters. The only difference is it's bigger. It's 4 foot wide and 7 foot long, and it's got a flat bottom and a curved top. So it's a much larger device, therefore 45,000 LEDs, because we got to put them all close together, and it takes more diodes to make that happen. Then you've got the newest model, which is called a 360 Plus. It's a significantly stronger device. So again, light has some window of divergence when you get into the irradiance. It can fluctuate 15 milliwatts per centimeter squared. That's how you measure light. Milliwatts being the power, and per centimeter squared is the area. So it's the intensity of the light. So It ranges between, so if I said 155 milliwatts per centimeter squared, it can actually go as high as 170 and as low as 140. It fluctuates based on your power coming into your house. So I can't control that part, right? And that sometimes changes throughout the day. But why do we pick that number? So anything from 0 to 300 milliwatts per centimeter squared is stimulatory. We're trying to heal things, remember? But we want to be, again, because the way our diodes are so close together, we don't lose that irradiance from where we're starting as it's entering the tissue, which means we don't want the sweet spot, according to, again, the literature, is 40 to 80 milliwatts per centimeter squared is ideal for tissue repair. So when you start at 100 and light goes about 3 centimeters deep, you get pretty low down to that, oh gosh, 10 milliwatts per centimeter squared along the way. So light gets weaker even when it's designed well, because that's physics. So at 165, it's a stronger initial source so that by the time it gets in the tissue, it's in that wonderful sweet spot. So it's a better math bed than our first models were. But if the very first model in the market was 32, and if we'd have jumped from that to 165, the world would have went, "What are you doing?" Right? They just, so and you do everything responsibly. So you step your way up through the curve. And in the beginning, by the way, I was the very first person to buy a red light bed and put it into a business and try to figure out what time it would really take to become effective, because we had a very educated guess, but we really didn't know for sure. We had to put people in it, and we learned what we knew. So that was the 32 milliwatts per centimeter squared bed. Then we went to Theralight, and that's why I partnered with them, because they pulse, and because pulsing helps that disassociation, and because they're stronger. So it was a more time efficient delivery system. It took longer with a lower bed, and it's not perfectly correlative. It's not like you can take a baby aspirin for a headache. You can't take 10 of them. It doesn't ever equate to Excedrin extra strength, because they're in the same class, but they're different they're in the same category, but they're a different class. So you've got a very low powered one and a one that's designed for big headaches. And then you got the next class up, which is your narcotics, right? So you have 3 different classes, but it's the same group of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Same thing with light. So the 100 milliwatts per centimeter squared is your Excedrin, extra strength, and your 360 plus is your narcotics. It's your big boy, right? So when people are trying to figure out which one to put in their home, I always say, or in their business, what is your first, if you're trying to get people well and healthy after they've lost their wellness, I would go with the strongest bed. It's the best parameters for that. If you're trying to just stay well and healthy, either of the Fit or the 360 is perfectly sufficient for that. And honestly, I've seen health improvement in miracle form in the 360. It's good enough to create miracles. It just takes a bit longer to get the job done from an interval perspective, how often you do it. So the stronger bed, the 360 plus, will get you healthier faster in a shorter amount of time than the 360 will, but you'll still get there with the 360 eventually. So if you're putting it in your home, I don't care which one you put, they're all amazing. You put it in a business, most of the time we're doing the 360 plus because it's more time efficient and it happens faster. So that's better for business.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have a link on here with the pricing, but we've talked about this, and the cost of the Theralight 360 and the Theralight 360 Plus is not that far off.
They're about
So
$10,000 difference. Yes.
$10,000 difference.
But
And how long ago did they release the Plus? That was just recently,
about,
right?
yeah, that was like August or September. It's been a while, a
Yeah.
couple of months now, but not very long ago. So we have over 600 units worldwide right now. Most of those, probably 500 of them plus, are the Theralight or the Fit, which again are the same, just different shapes and sizes.
Yeah. And so when we get to application, I love the fact we're talking about home, but when we first talked, one of the things we talked about was wellness centers, spas, but specifically wellness centers, right? And we really work with a lot of technologies. We work with a lot of plasma energy technology, PEMF technology, a
Oh,
lot of grounding technology, scalar energy
I
technology.
love that because they're
All
better
this
together
really
than they are separate. They're all
they
standalone.
are
They are
yeah,
synergistic.
hyperbaric. Yeah. But the thing that I love about what you are providing is that for a wellness center that's out there that's saying, what is another piece of technology that we can bring in that's going to add a lot of value, that synergistically works with everything else that we've got. This is really cutting edge state of the art, especially that 360, because that is the really, if not the best that's out there that you've been
I
able to
believe it's
find,
best in class. I really
the
truly
best
believe it's best in the world.
on the planet this time. And when it comes to outcomes, when it comes to helping people, number one, it's all about maintaining good health, which we always want. That's our primary goal. Mitigate and get rid of all the free radicals, keep everything, like, stay healthy, get more energy, do all those great things. But a lot of people using this technology, going to these wellness centers, something has gone sideways in their health. And
And they're trying to
so,
recover what they've lost. Yep,
yes,
exactly.
yes.
So
And
you want the
so
best tool to do that, you bet.
you do. And this is such an integral part of having a wellness center and bringing in new technology that you might not be familiar with yet.
I truly believe it's probably the most profound intervention we honestly know about because it works for every single cell and it works, it doesn't matter who you are, it works for your cells because that's the way cells work.
Yeah. And Valerie, the thing I love, and because you're so deep into this and so well versed on all the knowledge base, a lot of published data. If you need published data and you're one of those people that said, I want to see published scientific data, it is out there. When I
PubMed.
first ran into the Theralight technology, it was actually at a trade show in Las Vegas, and everybody was going completely bonkers because you had all this published data. So now all the doctors and all the clinicians and all these people that had talked and looked at this technology really had scientific data to work from. And then you have, go ahead.
Yes. Can I speak on that just briefly? Because when I started, again, coming from the nursing world, which is very science based and very boxed, right? We're inside our
Mm-hmm,
little box. Um, I thought the doctors would just jump on this. Well, there wasn't enough published research for them to put their reputations on the line. I completely
mm-hmm.
understand that. Now there's more science on than any other pharmaceutical that you can find. There's more science, and there are no negative side effects. There are positive side effects. Circulation is one of them, right? Improve circulation, increase energy production is a positive side effect. But there are no negative side effect when it's built correctly and delivered correctly. So, and by the way, when I say that, the Theralight, again, since we're talking about that, is considered a non-significant risk device. It cannot harm you. It's a general wellness device according to the FDA regulations. So it is in those very, very safe parameters. It's even safe enough for your eyes. We've had the bed independently tested for all the parameters that we're talking about. We're not just telling you that. It's been validated from an external source, kind of like an underwriter's laboratory, if you're familiar with that. So
Right.
we're, by the way, I think the only product that has done that. So it's a buyer beware industry. And there's a reason that we're a leader and have this many units on the ground is our leadership team combined 5 people. We have over 75 years of combined experience between 5 people. And we have all those beds, it was gross. So we have the infrastructure that can manage, and we have people that are knowledgeable and clinicians that can answer your questions. So it's not about just buying it. It's what happens when you get it. You have to know how to run it and choose the settings that you want it. So you have people you can consult. So we have the whole package.
You know what I also love about the company? I love the fact that you keep getting better. You start with a base product, you're in the industry, you keep
Innovating
developing, you
all
keep
the
pushing the
time.
envelope, and now you keep coming up with new stuff, and you're staying ahead of the curve, and you're literally you're basically the pinnacle technology, but
Yes.
you're not happy staying there. It's continued ongoing development,
I'll make a
pushing
point on that
technology.
too. So it's why everybody says we're just like Theralight or we're this compared to Theralight. Therlight's not comparing himself to anybody. We are the leader in the industry. We know what the heck we're doing.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
love
fun.
that.
I would, if I found and I've said this, if I found a better product, I would go with that because it's about my customers and their wellness. I will always partner with the best product because I'm lucky enough to understand the math inside and out. So
Valerie, you are awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time. We're
I'm
partnering with
really good at
you.
one subject.
Well, you are, but you know what? You're so the knowledge base is so vast. And we talked earlier, this is going to be an ongoing segment on our channel because the amount of information is vast. We can drill down onto very specific topics. We can get questions and answers. If anybody out there is looking to purchase a Theralight, you can contact us. The link will be below. and we can schedule a call with Valerie to do any questions and answers. I've had a lot of wellness centers already reaching out to me saying, hey, what is a technology that we can incorporate with our existing technology that we have? And we're really starting to promote the Theralight 360 or the Theralight, any one of the different models, because like you said, they all are going to be fantastic products. And we do offer financing. We have a finance company we work with that can help with that. Valerie, we're going to go ahead and sign off. But before I do, is there anything else you'd like to say to finish the call?
No, except for thank you for watching, because an educated consumer is buys a better product. Doesn't matter. It is a very deep topic, and thank you for taking the time to become educated so you can make an educated decision.
That's awesome. And I'm so happy we got this on video because now I can watch it 3 or 4 times to
Learn,
absorb a lot of
learn
the
everybody
information that
else,
was
right?
put out there.
This didn't happen by accident. I've been trying to figure this stuff out for 15 years.
I know, but I love that. And I just love having like that knowledge base of somebody that I can go to that, number one, I know really knows it. And number two is, deeply involved in the industry and has seen the growth and development of all these
And
different
20 years of
products.
nursing gives me an insight that, non-clinical people can't have. I understand the body too. So the combination
Right.
is, yeah, I know my lane. I stay in my lane, and that's light therapy. Yeah, so I know one topic really well.
I love that. Well, thanks so much
So,
for your
my
time. Go
pleasure.
ahead and stay with
Thanks
me. We'll
again.
go ahead and sign off. Everybody that's out there, thanks for watching the video. We'll have links and everything below. And Valerie, we'll look forward to seeing you on our next call.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was way fun. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.